Trigger warning. There are intense themes of depression and self-loathing. You have been warned. The voices are so loud, screaming at me. Liar. You should have been killed. What are you even here for? Useless. Untrustworthy. Lunatic. Killer. My vision starts to darken. I am useless. This mask I wear is just a lie. I really am just a liar. I woke up at 2 a.m. Have gotten no sleep. My eye bags are going to start being noticeable. Scream. I walked to the bathroom where the scream originated from. I walked in slowly, probably overly cautious. We are in a killing game after all. I looked in the shower, then I moved my eyes towards the door. I see someone in the mirror. I step towards the mirror to see myself looking back at me. He's smiling at me. I step back reflexively. My anxiety started to spike. The person in the mirror is not me. Hi, Kokichi, the mirror said to me with the smirk I know so well. Have you finally got some sense and found out that you are not wanted here? Nobody cares about you. You are useless. He faded into the darkness of the mirror, only to be replaced by the faces of my classmates. First it was Kaito and Maki, then the rest soon followed. They said all the things I've heard before. Lastly, it showed Shuichi, his face pale and his expression bare. You should have trusted me, he said before his eyes went dark. I screamed at the sight and punched the mirror, causing it to shatter. The pink blood dripped off my hand. My hands pulled at my hair as I screamed, as tears streamed down my face. Fat tears started to flow down my cheeks, sobs erupting from my throat. I screamed until my throat felt like blades were cutting into it. I fell to the floor of the bathroom and sobbed until the morning announcement came on, indicating it was time to get up. Well, time to start another day, I said, my voice scarce and broken from the events of the night before. I got up off the tiled floor of the bathroom and went to change. My clothes from the day before were covered in tear stains and blood from my fist. I took off my clothes and threw some new ones on. I bandaged my hand and arms from the night before to complete the look. And to hide the cuts, I put a glove on my cut-stained hand. I sat down on my bed, opening my notebook. 12 more cuts added to my arm and 25 cuts on my hand from the glass of the mirror. I sighed, placing the notebook in the fake bottom of my drawer of my bedside table. Pushing myself off the bed, I made my way to the cafeteria. I walked into the cafeteria with my usual mask on. It seems I happened to be the last one to show up, I announced to my classmates sitting around the cafeteria. Maybe it's because I was causing trouble, but who knows? Even I don't remember. I grabbed a bottle of Panta and turned to Shuichi. See you later, Sahara-chan, I said before leaving the room in a flourish. When I was away from the noise of the useless chatter, I pulled out a blade. Good morning, students, Monokuma screeched over the intercom. We have a new motive, seeing as not that much killing has been happening, Monokuma continued. Since you have been so boring, you get some more punishment, punks, Monokid chimed in. Please don't let it be violent, Monofian whimpered. The new motive is, Monokuma paused, secret revelation, Monofian beamed. We have found a notebook filled with secrets, and if no killing happens today by 7 p.m., then its contents will be revealed, Monokuma yelled once again. Happy killing, punks, Monokid added before the intercom shut off. Notebook. My eyes widened as I heard the announcement. I only have until 7 until they find out. They are all going to know about everything. The abuse I've caused myself, the nightmares that just keep getting worse. Then they will all know who I really am, and then they will definitely kill me. My breathing quickened as I checked the drawer of my dresser. Of course, it was empty. That was my notebook. They took my notebook. Everyone will know. I fell to the floor with despair. Tears were already flowing out of my eyes. I decided I didn't have enough energy to put my mask on. So I was going to skip breakfast today. Can't be that much of a big deal. I bet no one will notice if I'm missing. They all hated me anyway. There's no way to change anything now. I just have to bite the bullet and approach them. I took a deep breath and got up off the floor. I wiped my eyes, trying to look presentable in some way. I took off my shirt and made some marks on my arm to be able to have some energy to maintain my mask for the day. 17 cuts added to my left arm. When I was putting the blade away, there was a knock on my door. Kokichi? It has been 7 days since I have been here, and Kaide's execution was a while ago. I was still way anxious of another murder happening, especially after the new motive. I walked to the cafeteria since it was already an hour into lunch. I was too busy overthinking why Kokichi missed breakfast. Is the notebook his? Is the new motive threatening to reveal whatever he put in the notebook? Stop overthinking this. Maybe he just isn't feeling well. I looked at the clock again and noticed I was still super late to lunch, and people were going to start getting suspicious. The hallways were always dark, and while walking down them, you always had to be careful to watch out for vines, cracks, and roots on the floor from weathering. I walked into the cafeteria, and the white fluorescent lights flashed into my eyes, causing me to have to blink while my eyes were adjusting to the sudden change. When my eyes adjusted, I noticed that Kokichi still wasn't there. My anxiety spiked. I started to ask around the room to see if he was okay. Then they said they hadn't seen him, and some even added why they wouldn't care where he was anyway. Lastly, I asked my colleagues, Maki and Kaito, and they both said they hadn't seen him since the nighttime announcement yesterday. My breathing started to increase in speed. Kokichi could be dead for who knows how long. Maybe he got murdered. Maybe he has been dead since breakfast and nobody went looking for him. I left the room to go and find Kokichi. I just had to calm my worries and prove that these statements were just false knowledge, so I would be able to think clearly. Before I left, I saw Kaito and Maki look at me with confused looks. That doesn't matter now. I need to see if Kokichi is okay. I know no one has gone looking for him because they all are not very fond of him and would probably be glad if he was no longer around. It's kind of sad to think of it like that. No one even bothered to go looking for him, even though he has been gone for more than 12 hours. I started walking faster as I heard a thump come from the direction of his room. My heart was going a mile a minute. He didn't deserve to die. I finally got to his room. I was gasping for air because of sprinting down the hallway and jumping over vines and such. I hesitated, but knocked on the door with a shaking hand. Kokichi? I jumped at the sudden noise, scared of who could be behind the door. Who would care enough to come knock on my door, or even bother coming to look for me? I hesitantly spoke. Yeah, who's knocking at the Ultimate Supreme Leader's door at this hour? I tried to cover up my stutter at the beginning. It's me, Shuichi, and I was wondering why you haven't come out of your room all day. Shuichi's at the door. I hesitantly walked over to the door and opened it. I'm surprised my beloved Saihara-chan came to check up on me. After I said that, his eyes went down to my wrist, and I realized I wasn't wearing a shirt to cover all the wounds on my wrists and arms. My eyes widened, and I slowly looked at Shuichi. It's not what it looks like, I said before slamming the door and running to the bathroom, locking the door shut. I could hear the door open and Saihara calling my name. It sounded like he was about to cry. Is this a prank? He started pounding on the door. Kokichi, I know you're in there. Please come out. Let's talk about this, please. Kokichi, let me in. I reluctantly walked out. Why do you care? Aren't you and scum like me enemies? I'm a leader of a super evil organization, and you're a detective. Isn't that right, Mr. Detective? I said, hiding my arms behind my back, even though that did remotely nothing, seeing as all the scars over my torso and back. All Saihara did was stare. Saihara-chan. I was cut off by Shuichi pulling me into a hug. I jumped a little from the sudden touch, but eventually and reluctantly hugged him back. I soon felt wet tears fall onto my shoulder. I felt guilty for the words I said before. I could hear small sobs escape his mouth. I rubbed his back to try to comfort him in some way. Hey, Saihara-chan, I'm okay, alright? You don't have to worry about me. He pulled back suddenly and revealed his tear-stained cheeks from the fat tears rolling down them. He looked really mad, and his face was all red and his nose was running from the crying. How can you say that? He yelled at me. More tears came down his face. I'm really doing fine. He put his hand over my mouth. Don't even say that. You matter. Maybe not to anyone out there, but you matter to me. He paused, looking away while his face got redder. Don't talk about yourself like that, he said, taking his hand off my mouth. Sorry, I lost my composure, he said, holding his hand over his mouth, face still red. Baffled, I took a few moments to process what just happened. I stayed silent for a moment and hesitated before speaking. Hey, Saihara-chan, I was cut off by an announcement from none other than Monokuma himself. Hey, Ultimates, seeing as now it is 7 p.m., no murder has happened, I will have to reveal the contents of this notebook, Monokuma yelled, giggling uncontrollably after. It states, so I guess this is happening. Who knew this would happen to someone like me? Anyway, like before I came here, I'm going to keep an account of everything that happens. Day 1. Man, people already hate me. I would have expected this, since even before only a few people could tolerate me. I have to keep this up. I will end this killing game, and I don't want anyone getting attached to scum like me. No sleep again. Not surprised, to be honest. 14 cuts on right thigh, 15 cuts on left thigh. Day 2. I have to keep this up or people will suspect something. Who would want to know the real me anyway? Everybody wants me dead. I can't say I don't want the same thing. 1 long cut on my back and torso, 23 cuts on both arms. Day 3. I can't take it anymore. I wish this would just end. There's only one person here that I would miss, and he doesn't even know I'm alive. Anyway, why would he care about me anyway? Who would miss this? Flashbacks tormented me all day. Could barely leave my room. I should probably start to eat soon. 45 cuts on my torso and back. 2 deep cuts on left wrist. Day 4. Somebody tried to kill me today. I'm not that surprised. Lost too much blood yesterday. It caused me to be delusional, so I'm skipping today. The nightmares occurred again. Day 5. 15 cuts on both lower legs. Running out of wrap, I will have to go steal some more out of the infirmary soon. Hallucinations today have made a total of 18. Eye bags have gotten worse. We'll have to apply more makeup to hide them. Day 6. He said I would be alone forever. He's not wrong, but it hurts like hell. He was in the mirror again, taunting me, torturing me. He must hate me. 3 cuts on the back of my neck. The voices are so loud, screaming at me. Liar, you should have been killed. What are you even here for? Useless. Untrustworthy. Lunatic. Killer. The nightmares are getting worse, and I find it harder to sleep at night. I can't even remember the last time I fell asleep. 12 more cuts added to my arms. 25 cuts on my hand from the glass of the mirror. Day 7. That's all, folks. Some interesting stuff in here, Monokuma stated. That was so gory, Monofiana whispered. Well, you all are probably wondering who this belongs to. And I'll let you figure that out. To make this more interesting, happy killing, he said with one final screech before the monitor shut off. Tears were already pouring down my face. Shuichi said nothing and pulled me to the bed and held me in his arms. I'm sorry for not noticing, he said, muffled by my hair. It's alright, I should have told you, I said, sobs bursting out of my mouth, erupting from my lungs. He started to rub circles into my back, and he nuzzled his head into my hair. I love you, Kokichi. Confused by his words, I hesitated, then responded with the words I've kept to myself for a long time. I love you too, Saihara-chan. He then pulled back and moved his hands to my cheek. Confused, I looked up at him. He had a small smile with tears falling out of his eyes. I'm so glad you're still here, he said before leaning down and putting his lips to mine. He kissed me and I soon melted into the kiss. I never thought this would happen, and it's like a dream come true. I nervously was in my empty room when the nighttime announcement went on. I started to shake when I was feeling another hallucination about to happen. That was before I remembered. Saihara-chan cared about me and wanted to help. It took me an hour to work up the courage to walk over to his dorm. The hallways are so empty at this time of night. I wonder if somebody or people started to figure out that it was me. I covered my mouth to muffle the screams anytime I heard a noise. I felt more afraid than I have in my entire life, and I didn't like it. I knocked on Shuichi's door hesitantly. It felt like I was waiting for years instead of seconds. I was met with a tired-looking Shuichi. His eyes were droopy, and he looked like he would fall asleep at any time. Hey, Saihara-chan, I was just making sure you were okay. It's not like I was scared or anything, I rambled, moving my hands as I spoke. I was only pulled into his room and felt the warmth from his embrace. Shuichi! I started suddenly, embarrassed by the sudden contact. Kokichi, calm down. I know your nightmares make it hard for you to sleep. I was actually up waiting for you, he said in a soothing voice. I stayed silent because I was too embarrassed to respond. He probably knew this because after a couple of seconds he pulled me over to his bed and laid down beside me. I was facing him and was grateful it was so dark so he couldn't see my blush. He put his arms around my small frame and rubbed my back, causing me to shiver. I felt safe in his embrace and could feel myself begin to fall asleep. Shuichi was startled awake by Kokichi shaking and sobbing in his sleep. Kokichi moved while he was sleeping and was on the other side of the bed. Tears were pouring out of his eyes and his whole body was shaking violently. Shuichi was immediately concerned and pulled Kokichi into his arms. He held him close and wanted to do anything in his power to make this stop. Kokichi shook less from the embrace and the sobs soon calmed down. Shuichi combed through his hair with one hand, putting the other one around his waist. Shuichi was consumed with worry and felt on edge ever since he found out that the boy he cared deeply about tried to end his own life and was causing himself so much pain. A couple of tears fell out of his eyes onto Kokichi's hair. Kokichi started to shuffle around the bed. Shuichi? He said, his voice tired and quiet. He paused and opened his eyes to see Shuichi's tear-stained face. Shuichi, what's wrong? Kokichi said, moving his hands to his face, wiping away the tears off his now wet cheeks. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to be there for you. He was cut off by his own sobs. Kokichi stayed silent and nuzzled into his chest in an attempt to comfort him. I'm not going anywhere because you're here with me. He pulled out of the embrace and pressed his lips to his.